meeting. So I just want to welcome all my colleagues, and we all miss seeing you guys in person, and all our colleagues from Mexico. We hope you're here virtually as well. And I see Jorge is going to talk about CBX. I should be on a CBX plane right now to Oaxaca. A CBX, do I go to Oaxaca or the East Cape or Cabo to surf amazing swell? But I'm here suffering, running a meeting. So I just want to let you know that. Well, but I look forward to seeing CBX soon. Anyway, with that, I think we're all tired of Zoom world. So if I appear like really frenetic, it's because I need to get the energy out and be in person. But anyway, I see Jack is one of our newest members, is in his suit and tie. Thanks, Jack. I appreciate that for dressing it up. Anyway, and with the note, we just want to let you know that we have simultaneous interpretation if you need it. Carlos, our interpreter, is here. If you could briefly explain how the feature works. Carlos, want to let us know? I'm not hearing anything. I think Carlos has stuff in chat. So if you need it, the information's in chat. But anyway, just want to make sure we do recognize our cross-border essential workers who you choose not to or cannot afford to live here. Even with travel restrictions, around 85,000 people make this trip each day, which is more than the population of many cities in San Diego County, including mine. So we can't do what we do in San Diego and Tijuana without all of us who are working on both sides of the border all the time and living, right? So this is stuff's more important than ever. So before we start today's meeting, I'd like to ask our clerk to confirm that we have a quorum. Avelia?
Yes, Chair Dedina, we have a quorum.
Awesome, great. And with the quorum confirmed, I'd like to review the process and guidelines for conducting the meeting in a virtual environment. For Borders Committee members, please note that you are not automatically muted by the meeting organizer, so you will have to mute and unmute yourself. In addition, when you would like to speak, please turn on your camera or raise your hand by opening your participants panel on the Zoom toolbar and clicking raise hand at the bottom. Once I see you, I will recognize you at that time. For members of the public who would like to speak on an item, please use the raise hand icon in the Zoom toolbar. When you are called, you'll be unmuted by Sandag staff. If you are calling in by phone, you may need to enter *6 to unmute yourself. After your comments, you'll be muted by Sandag staff. If you're calling into the meeting, please press *9 on your phone if you would like to comment on an item. All comments, whether emailed or live, will be part of today's meeting record. Any questions on that before we continue? Great, I'd like to move on to the first item on the agenda, and that's the approval of the meeting minutes. Can either of our members entertain a motion, a second, to approve minutes?
Moreno, happy to make a motion.
Thank you. A second?
Dave Drucker will second.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate that. And can we get I guess we have to do raise, how do we do the, oh, you're gonna call the votes, right, never mind.
City of San Diego, Councilmember Vivian Moreno.
Moreno, yes.
County of San Diego, Supervisor Joel Anderson.
Aye.
East County, Councilmember Jack Shu.
Yes.
Imperial County, Supervisor Jesus Eduardo Escobar.
Yes.
North County Coastal, David Drucker.
Yes.
North County Inland, Mayor Paul McNamara.
Yes.
South County, Chair Serge Dedina.
Dedina, yes.
And the motion passes with everyone present unanimously.
Great, thanks so much. Unfortunately, I missed last month's meeting, but I know you discussed planning and collaboration across the border. I want to thank Vice Chair Moreno for chairing that meeting. Thank you so much for doing that. And focusing on the 2021 Border Master Plan and its story map. These are great tools for effective collaboration, but let me use this as a segue to offer another perspective. Certainly these last 13 months of pandemic have revealed many of our weaknesses, but also our strengths. And I think the border is a great example of this. As I mentioned in many board meetings, my city, Imperial Beach, has been dealing with an additional issue, the flow of cross-border sewage, trash, and toxic waste, which has closed our beaches many times over the past months and more recently. While any solution requires cross-border collaboration, the fact that we are operating with restrictions at the border makes it nearly impossible to do the kind of work that we all need to do to be together, right? And that's not just with our neighbor to the south, but obviously our neighboring counties, and then with our tribal partners as well. So I'm calling for your participation and leadership on this issue and helping us figure out how to get back to normal, right? How we start meeting together, working together in person, and how we begin to start crossing borders. This is more important than ever, and all of us need to take a role in leading that effort. So just wanted to mention some things that are important to keep in mind. The new free trade agreement, the USMCA, is functioning and trade is growing. And just to highlight, I had a good conversation with Mike Levin for students at USD and at UCSD, and it was really fascinating to hear the role that our own delegation, Mike Levin, Scott Peters, and Juan Vargas played, and Dianne Feinstein getting that UMCA agreement approved along with our friends in labor and the environmental movement, but also to get $300 million allocated to address issues of cross-border sewage. So that was actually really interesting. The United States has rejoined the Paris Agreement and its climate change commitments. And yesterday, President Biden was with leaders from around the world, but including President Lopez Obrador, virtually, right? But that's a big deal. And I'm really glad that we have both countries working on essentially infrastructure on the border that should be reducing emissions, right? But that's going to be the case for a lot of our transportation projects and especially transit projects as we move forward into the future, as we go north, south, east, right? And possibly west, but up, I guess up as well with we have new airports, et cetera. And then we have new immigration policies in the United States and Mexico, and the crisis in Central America is reflected in the humanitarian crisis unfolding at our border. And if there's high-level economic dialogue between the US and Mexico, we should take advantage of it, but not wait for that to happen. Again, a lot of the leadership on the border comes from below. It comes from our leaderful San Diego, Tijuana coalition of government agencies and elected officials, civic organizations, as well as the private sector. But anyway, I'll leave it there for now. And I hope we can continue this type of discussion soon. But I want to thank again, each and every one of you for all the leaderful work that we all do to keep our region moving forward. But it's going to take a lot more work to take a lot more effort to figure out how to get us back open, especially that international border that they're talking about in May, than it was to close it, right? I think closing was complicated, but a lot more simpler than how we get back together and stronger than ever. So with that, I will move on to the next item, and that's item number 3, the Executive Director's Report. But it sounds like we have Ray Trainer instead of Hassan here as well. So take it away, Ray.
That's right. Thanks, Chair Dedina and Vice Chair Moreno. Good to see you both and members of the Borders Committee. I wanted to just provide a few brief updates I think that would be of note for the Borders Committee. Starting with the update on the Central Mobility Hub, SANDAG issued the notice of preparation this week, and that's in preparation for our work on the CEQA environmental review for that project. So back in 2019, the Board of Directors approved the recommendation for the Airport Connectivity Subcommittee, and that group was really focused on trying to explore all the different opportunities to provide connections to the San Diego International Airport. So this Mobility Hub project is envisioned to connect transit from all over the region and is really a key mobility hub as one of the principal concepts in the 2021 draft regional plan. And over the last year, we've been doing a lot of preliminary planning work, a lot of stakeholder engagement, conducted some public workshops, and continuing to collect public input. Now, the environmental review process is going to explore a couple of important alternatives for the Central Mobility Hub. So first, we're taking a look at the Old Town campus that's currently occupied by the Navy as a part of their NAVWAR cybersecurity headquarters there. The second site is something that we've also had in our previous regional plans that's known as the Intermodal Transportation Center, and that's located along Pacific Highway near the Washington Street exit. And then as well as looking at direct connectivities to the San Diego trolley. So this is really something that's, I think, a big project. We know we've been trying to solve ground transportation connectivity to our region's airport for decades. So we're excited about the prospect that this project holds for us. And so we just want to invite you as members of the committee and all the different stakeholders and constituency that you touch to get the word out about the notice of preparation. This is the first step in the CEQA environmental review process for this important project. Related to the regional plan, we had a really good milestone this week that we think is also really noteworthy, and that relates to the work that we have to submit to the California Air Resources Board. And this is really about the technical methodology that we undertake in consultation with the state in order to be able to submit our regional plan and SCS. So we've got really good news to share, and that is that the California Air Resources Board has approved the methodology that we're using for the 2021 plan. This is really connected to the implementation of Senate Bill 375, which oversees the work to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and all the technical quantification work that the Air Resources Board undertakes as they review regional plans from organizations like SANDAG. So we're really thrilled about the accomplishment. And I wanted to give a shout out to some of the folks that were involved from a SANDAG staff level, many of which you know as members of the Border Committee. That would be Elisa Arias, Tueri Fayola, Antoinette Meyer, Philip Traum, Allison Wood, Dr. Wu Sun, Rick Curry, Ziying Uwing, Crystal Ayala, Eva Sanchez, Susan Friedman, and from our Office of General Counsel, Samantha Folk. So we're really thrilled about this. It's really an important milestone for us as we start to bring the draft regional plan closer to the board here in May. Another thing that I think is interesting for members of the committee to be aware of is just this month we received a notice from the California Energy Commission, and SANDAG has received a $200,000 award of a grant to help us develop for both medium and heavy duty vehicles a zero emission vehicle infrastructure. So we're going to be assessing all the existing fleets and infrastructure, trying to understand some of the barriers that we face as we talk about deploying EVs across these important components of our transportation system. As a part of the grant, we'll also be working with constituents to be able to develop some strategies that are going to help our region really focus on getting down to zero emissions on these important parts of our vehicle fleet. Just for background, we've had some success with these types of grants, securing a little more than $1 million over the past handful of years through the California Energy Commission's Clean Transportation Program. So we're going to look forward to continuing to work with the Commission on this and to achieve both the state's and the region's goals for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Moving now to the border, which I know is near and dear to all of your hearts. Just this last week, we took a team for a site tour, inviting Sue Sarnio from the General Consulate Office down to take a look. And that office is so vital for our work as we're starting to now move into the final phases at the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry. You'll recall that this is a joint venture project between SANDAG and Caltrans in partnership with our federal partners here in the United States and our partners in Mexico. So the vision here is to create a 21st century border crossing to really support the California, San Diego, Baja mega region that we know is going to enhance mobility and really help economic growth and, of course, begin to address some of the important emissions issues that we've been facing there for decades. Moving back up the coast a little bit with Delmar Bluffs, the stabilization work, we've continued to coordinate very closely with our partners at the North County Transit District on those emergency repairs. And you might remember the bluff failure that we had just some weeks ago. Last weekend, we had a full closure of this important rail line that gives our crews an opportunity to get in and work safely and complete a lot of work in a short period of time. There's going to be another closure this coming weekend. I just wanted to mention that to you because we know that that's a big freight corridor, and this is going to be planned for also the weekend of May 1st. And this again allows our crews to do this important emergency work. And these types of closures and the work is envisioned to continue through July when we imagine being able to wrap up this important project. In the meantime, our teams are studying the long-term solution to getting the rail line off the bluffs. And so we've made some presentations and we're bringing more of those to this committee in the near future, just to give you awareness of what's happening with the long-term plan and all the planning studies that are looking at moving that corridor more inland and also putting that underground. When it comes down to rail, I wanted to make mention to this committee that this week we had a celebration on the Midcoast trolley. Just this week, Sandag's Chair Blake Spear and Vice Chair Gloria joined our colleagues at Caltrans, the Metropolitan Transit System, and the leadership from UC San Diego, along with UC San Diego Health, to celebrate the opening of the realigned Campus Point Drive area there near the trolley stop. And this is going to really provide an important mobility access for the healthcare workers, patients, and students to be able to access that. And so we're looking forward to later this year when we get to celebrate with the entire region the opening of the new UC San Diego Blue Line trolley, and that's targeted for November of 21. And then one other thing that I think would be of interest here is yesterday our staff conducted a virtual workshop on digital equity and our smart cities initiatives. And this is all to try to help us begin to address, really for the first time, a comprehensive set of solutions around closing the digital divide. Yesterday's workshop had more than 100 people, ranging from nonprofit organizations that were represented to our local government agencies and regional organizations. And so we're really happy about the participation. This is really essential that we address the digital divide. I think during the last year, it's become evident to all of us that the pandemic has really revealed the growing gap between those who have access to high speed internet and those who don't. This is a huge equity issue, and it's an infrastructure issue. And so the 2021 regional plan makes a lot of reliance on advanced technology as a means of getting more efficiency and effectiveness and increasing the reach of transportation options to every member of our community. So closing the digital divide is an important element and an important investment area that we have to make for our region's economy. And so right now we're trying to align local resources along with state and federal resources to be able to position the region to be able to get funding when it's available and to have a clear plan on how we can actually close this important important issue that we all face. So Chair Dedina, that concludes my report, and I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ray, and for that update and all the great work that's going on. Were there any public comments? First, I didn't ask for public comments at the beginning. Are there any public comments just in general? Or member comments? And then we'll get to any comments on any questions or comments for Ray?
I don't see any hands raised, Chair Dedina.
Okay. There are no hands, or there are hands raised?
There are not.
Okay, all right, great, thanks. Okay, well then, thanks again, Ray, and thanks again to all the Sandag staff. You know, it's really important stuff, and we have a lot of big projects coming down the pipe, which I think is really important, which is why I think it's really important to highlight the next two items, CBX and then the upgrades to the San Ysidro and Otay Mesa Land ports of entry, because both are really incredibly complex projects that require multi-agency coordination on both sides of the border. One's a public-private partnership, the other was state and public partnership, and I mean federal government partnerships, but working extensively on both sides of the border that Sandag played a big role in. And so first we'll get the Cross-Border Express, which I have used. I've crossed that bridge and I've ended up in Central America, Mexico City, Oaxaca, Michoacan, Colima, La Paz, Loreto, and Cabo San Lucas. And generally after that, it's in really remote, beautiful areas, except for Mexico City, which is cool, where I'm surrounded by the tropical forest, amazing desert, and arguably the most important coastal and marine ecosystems on the planet, and some of the best surf and friendliest people on the planet, and the best food. So I'm really missing, I plan on spending a lot more time secretly down, it's crossing that bridge. But before I do, I know that this CBX is located in Vice Chair Moreno's district. Vivian, anything you want to add, since I know it's an important part of your Otay Mesa district?
Honestly, you know, we're just very grateful to be the home of CBX. I too have utilized its beautiful facilities, and I think that as we continue to champion our region in an international arena, CBX is going to be right next to us, making sure that we rise to that level. So very grateful to hear the updates and always happy to be here with everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Vice Chair Moreno. So with that, I'd like to introduce our good friend Jorge Goyo Tortura, who will be updating CBX. Again, an amazing facility, incredibly successful, and then the pandemic hit. So Jorge, take it away, and we're really interested in hearing your update and can't wait to see you guys back up to speed. Although maybe that's happening now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Mayor Dedina. I think we're gonna call you CBX official speaker after that introduction and how much you have traveled. So I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you what's going on. Thank you, Mrs. Moreno. Really, Councilman Moreno, it's great to be here. Mr. Anderson, Hector Venegas, all of the members of the Borders Committee, we appreciate the opportunity to share what's going on in CBX. You've been all very supportive of CBX even before we officially opened our doors. So we want to explain what is CBX, but we want to just focus on diving overview of how we operating, some of the changes we implemented in response of the pandemic, and our plans to continue innovating and serving as an economic engine for our binational region. So with that, I ask to go to the next slide, and let me start with the 2020 learnings. You can move to the next slide, please. Oh, I want to start with some of the learnings that we have in 2020. Just mentioning that CBX was founded on innovation, connecting families, and being the gateway for Southern California travelers to Mexico and beyond. And that's great to hear Mayor Dedina mention South America, Central and South America, because truly CBX is that bridge that connects Southern California with Central South America, and there's of course Asia. Looking forward to have our Asia flight back pretty soon. So we have always have a firm commitment to the safety of our passengers, our guests, our staff, and to keep these principles, we ensure and enduring the resilient enterprise CBX, we work to swiftly implement an array of safety, health, hygiene measures, incorporating always technology advances to streamline the international travel process as much as possible. We've been very responsible not to promote the traffic, not to promote the travel, but reality is that we have many passengers traveling during the pandemic. We never have a day with 0 passengers, and we have to be very responsible of that. And of course, not forgetting that we strive to support local communities in the Cali Baja mega region. So go to the next slide, please. And then I'm going to share a little bit this comparison of how CBX plays a role in the international travel between Mexico and the US. And the reason of this graph is comparing CBX with the Mexican airports, because pretty much tells you what's the story about the international travel between US and Mexico. And in that regard, CBX is the pipe gateway to connecting travelers between the United States and Mexico. But the Tijuana airport was also the fastest recovery airport, not only in Mexico, but in Latin America and perhaps in the world. The traffic between Mexico and the US overall after in this environment has been the fastest recovered air traffic around the world. And Mexico and Tijuana has been the airport who has catch most of these passengers. After international passengers, Cancun is still #1 in Mexico, and Mexico City, of course, but then CBX Tijuana ranks on the top 5 spots. But also it's important to mention that CBX in 2019 represented 83% of the total international travelers arriving in a direct flight to the San Diego region. In 2020, we represent more than 90%. So it is very important for us that you continue to support and see CBX as your international gateway, and I'm going to share a little bit later what infrastructure we're putting together to support that. So just another learning is that even though the travel restrictions has heavily impacted our business, we're technically a land port of entry, but we only serve air ticketed passengers. The Mexicans with B1, B2 visas cannot cross through CBX, and that has had a huge impact on our business. And these passengers are currently arriving by air to other U.S. gateways like LA, and we have seen the air seat capacity moving into other gateways like Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Miami, LAX. So we're pursuing this with CBP. We have a great relationship, but we have not been able to convince them that CBX should have a different treatment. So any support you can give will be greatly appreciated. So we go to the next slide. One of the things, the next one, please. One of the things that we have to adapt ourselves is during this pandemic is make provide to the passengers a touchless experience. So we implemented different initiatives, and we're very proud to be one of the first companies in the region, tourism companies, to obtain the Safe Travel stamp from the World Travel and Tourism Council. And by implementing cleaning measures like disinfection, plexiglass, mandatory masks and face shields, temperature checks, try to avoid any personal contact, but most important, to try to automatize all the passenger process to avoid that contact. So in the next slide, you can see one of the things that we were able to launch last year, which was our app, which not only helps to buy your tickets with CBX, but also to synchronize your CBX ticket with their airline boarding pass. As you may recall, all passengers crossing CBX needs to show both documents, but provides an easy access to eGates. Have links to complete immigration cards, trying to make the process, again, touchless as much as possible. Also, we identify information and soon an interactive crossing. So one of the first things that we implemented in 2020. We go to the next slide. We're going to talk about what services. What does this mean? As passengers required to present a boarding pass, we were able to partner with Viva Aerobus and Volaris, the largest carrier of Tijuana Airport, to have passengers when they buy their tickets to receive immediately their ticket and just crossing with the boarding pass instead of showing the two documents. So that has also helped on this new technology to provide a fast and seamless experience. We go to the next slide. We'll see just implementing new services. I'm not going to stop in here, but again, just upgrading our services here in CBX to provide better travel experience. Next one, please. Just go to the next one, because this is key. This is very important for us. We were able to implement biometrical facial recognition. We were the first southern with full CBP simplified arrivals. That means that the customers are now recognizing biometrical in just few seconds, and with a high percentage of accuracy. CBP can recognize who's crossing. Using this technology also prevents to have it's a hands-free process. And also we're implementing, if you recall, the passengers, the Mexican or foreign passengers arriving to our borders who are going to travel more than 25 miles from the border, they need to go to a secondary process. Now we have been able to implement the process where everyone is going to be able to be processed on the primary goods. That will really increase the travel experience for our customers. It will save time, it will efficient the numbers of officers. So we're doing everything, again, to enhance database capabilities to provide much better service. And yesterday we had the visit of CBP officers from Washington, D.C., and it was mentioned that CBX needs to be allowed to implement new technology, new process in order to just to still stimulating the tourism business, visit and friends, relatives, visit and friends traffic between the two countries. We go to the next slide. Want to share? Go to the next. Well, this is very exciting for us because we're not an airport, no question about it. And because of that, we did not have an IATA code identification. San Diego, as you recall it, SAN is their ID, their code, IATA code. We were able to obtain, even though we're not an airport, a code to identify TJX as a port of entry. So this is a technological implementation that allows to connect both countries in a new and innovative way, bringing, of course, substantial benefit to the airlines who are operating out of Tijuana CBX with different paths. One is allowing passengers or the Tijuana Airlines to display their flight routes as part of the San Diego and Southern California region and commercialize all the network in the region. Because Tijuana is an airport located in other country. In the past, we were not able to display Tijuana flights. Now with TJX and currently with Viva and Volaris, all the Tijuana flights are displayed as a San Diego region flight. Second is the opportunity to reach more than 10 million customers to the travel agencies, global distribution systems, OTAs, meta searches, again, because Tijuana flights are currently not displayed. Customers using the TJX station will have information sent to CBP or INAMI prior to arrival. We'll develop this with CBP, and our goal is to be processed more as an airport passenger in the future, include DNR or I-94 taxes to the passengers, so eliminate the need to go to a secondary process both in Mexico and the US. And of course, their luggage will be tagged as a TJX and could the bags still crossing with the passenger, but in case the luggage doesn't arrive, currently the customer needs to go to Tijuana Airport and pick up a luggage. Now it can be delivered directly here. So great advantages on this TJX Go, and it's going to put really the region in another perspective. A passenger searching a flight in Asia to San Diego could find connections to LA, connections to Dallas, Houston, but also arriving through Tijuana TJX. So it's a great opportunity for the region. We go to the next slide. I want to talk a little bit about our projects. So first of all, we completed last year a couple of small projects, arrivals hall, restrooms, and departure lobby here in San Diego. Just a month ago, a little bit more, 40 days ago, we just restart the expansion of the Customs and Border Protection area, what we call the Federal Inspection area. We're pretty much doubling the area, the processing area that we're going to have. So we're going to also implement additional kiosks, automatized kiosks, in order to process so faster and more efficient our passengers. We're looking to complete this project before November, so we'll be ready for vacation, for holidays, and Thanksgiving specifically. Also, we will be adding new surface parking. We may start this year this project and pretty much ending by 2022. Also, if we go to the next slide, please, and this is very, very exciting news. Tijuana is building, I don't know if you have seen, but Tijuana Airport, which we have common shareholders, they are building a huge facility, 430,000 square feet facility, $100 million investment, and it will pretty much double the size of Tijuana Airport. And the beauty of this project is that it's going to serve not only CBX passengers that would not have to go with luggage going downstairs, upstairs. People is gonna transit in the same level of the bridge, but also will allow passengers to go to an international destination without entering Mexico. For instance, when we have the China flight back here, a passenger coming here from San Diego that go to China will go directly to take their flight without entering Mexico, and the opposite. So let's say that we have flight coming from Santiago de Chile, landing in Tijuana. Passengers will be able to either enter Mexico and stay in Mexico, or they will be able to cross to the United States without having an immigration and customs process. So this beautiful project is looking to expand the air capacity in the San Diego region. We understand that the San Diego airport has constraints, runway constraints, curfew. So this project could really put in a different position our region to allow more passengers to arrive into the San Diego community. So if we go to the next slide, please. Almost done. So really what we're looking is to become Tijuana Airport into true binational airport with CBX, of course. The first phase of this project will be ready December 2021. So a few months to come for CBX passengers processing be ready, and the second phase will be ready by the end of our mid-2022. So we're very, very excited about this project. With that, I think that was the last slide. We go to the next one, but I believe that was that. Oh, just very quick, corporate social responsibility. We couldn't be part of this beautiful community without giving something back to the community. So we've been just having different community actions. So last year we raised $100,000 in a program, One Pound for a Meal. Currently we're running our third year with what we call One Toy, One Smile. We're giving hopefully 1,000 toys to kids in need. We partner with Teleton as well to people that have disabilities in Mexico. A couple of weeks ago, we have we went actually to Imperial Beach to help a little bit to clean the beach. It was pretty clean actually, but we just helped and got an integration process. So we want to just do more things for our community, and we're really honored to be part of this community. With that, I want to thank you for always partner with CBX, for always supporting, and please feel free to reach to us. We want to continue to be a key participant in the development of the region. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Jorge. We really appreciate that and all the great work you guys are doing. And yeah, and then for the beach cleanup in IB. So thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, I saw that. And we appreciate you guys doing that. Great report, and open it up to questions from members or more colleagues. Questions, comments? And I just need some help from staff and identify people who are raising their hands if I miss anybody.
There are no hands raised, Chair Medina.
Great. Well, thanks, Jorge. I'm just going to say that, I've said this again and again, but the last I heard, the data was 3,000 cars a day that weren't crossing the border into Tijuana, to go to CBX, which has a huge impact, positive impact on reducing emissions, right? People waiting in line and quality of life. So, I want to thank you for that. And then number two, I'm really always impressed, but you guys is embracing innovation and always thinking the next thing, not being content with just staying the same. Every time I go there, it's always getting better. And I'm sure Vice Chair Moreno sees that as well. Like, it's a real asset to the border community, in that you guys really set the standard for how we're going to move forward. And I think OTAI 2 will really kind of take on, it's going to have to compete, right? In the sense of really understanding there's a great model. But also, for me personally, it's been, when we look at environmental issues and the issue of water reuse and stuff, I say, well, we've got a great public-private partnership on getting across the border so we can do that with water, right? And sewage and water reuse. So, you know, I appreciate that. It's a really wonderful facility, really enjoyable versus what used to be this taxi ride and crossing the border, especially if you had a surfboard and suitcases, you know that, right? Like, but then you'd always get a great story from the taxi driver, so it was fine. Usually they'd end up crying and telling you their life story. So that was okay. But no, seriously, I really do appreciate it. And we look forward to continuing to support that, what you're doing. But also, I know you guys have a great partnership with Tijuana Airport, and let's acknowledge that Tijuana Airport is vastly different than it used to be. I was there right before the thing shut down on a trip to Oaxaca. But anyway, yeah, I'm always impressed with the changes at that airport too. So I think, again, it sets a standard for, you know, not making excuses of what's on the US-Mexico border so we can't get things done. I think it shows that with really smart folks like you guys, but really great partnerships on both sides of the border and agencies committed to making things happen, you guys can do, it's space age stuff, right? So great work.
Thank you. Todd, thank you so much. And again, we have a long-term vision, great shareholders, want encourage the development of the vision, and we're targeting for 7 million users by 2036, and Tijuana to go from 9 million users to 15 or 16 million in a few years. So again, I know that you see CBX as part of this community, has to be seen as the airport network that some cities in the world has it, and there's a lot of opportunities. We don't compete with San Diego Airport, we complement each other. And again, just thank you for all the support we always get for this community.
And if, just to our members, if you ever want to see like the real impact, but on a humanitarian basis in terms of people going back home to see their family, visit CBX closer to the holidays and go at midnight for the flights to Oaxaca and Colima and Michoacan from Tijuana. It's packed. It's absolutely packed. And people are dressed up in their best clothes, have suitcases packed. It's, well, you know it, and there's extra people to help, but it's actually really, really moving to me and really beautiful, right? To see that folks come from all over the Western United States. I think I was with a family, they're going to Oaxaca from Nevada, right? And to make sure they have the safe, really safe way to cross the border. So, you know, which, I mean, what, you know, crossing a night wasn't that safe. So anyway, again, thanks for that service and for your staff being really helpful and understanding like how is important. It's not just the elite traveling, it's everybody, right? The people in Pueblo, right? They're going back home. I find that it's always a great experience and to be in that environment. Of course, then to fall asleep on a floor somewhere. It gets delayed, but other than that, again, thank you very much. We appreciate all the partnerships as well as you guys have. And if there are no other questions, we'll move on. I know we had a request from our EPA colleagues to move up their presentation because they have some other commitments. So with that, I think Hector told me that Anthony agreed to go third. So thanks, Anthony. We'll hear the update on the San Ysidro and Otay Mesa Land Port of Entry third. And now I'd like to introduce my colleagues at from the EPA. And this will be an update on the US-Mexico border programs, Border 2020 and the new Border 2025 from Melissa Demas and Lorena Lopez Powers. And before Melissa introduces herself, I just want to say welcome, bienvenido on behalf of the San Diego Borders Committee. Melissa brings over 15 years of experience with the US EPA and arises at a time when our border region seems to make headlines every day. We know there are already many opportunities to work and support the EPA border program. We're looking forward to hopefully many partnerships. And I'll be speaking to Scott Peters after this. But one thing I want to make sure, and again, I just had this great conversation with Mike Levin for students at UCSD and USD, the first ever type of dialogue on policy. And we chose to talk about USMCA process that led to the largest allocation, as I understand it, in EPA history. And that was this $300 million USMCA allocation directed to the EPA. But that was a bipartisan program and really leaderful effort from San Diego and our business community, and people on both sides of the border that helped get that money allocated. And I know personally that I've said this again and again to EPA, whether it's Gina McCarthy, who's now was the head of the EPA, but I just talked to Deborah Sullivan, our Region 9 director. We're really grateful for the EPA staff being honest brokers and always being out there committed to helping the community. And especially on issues that I'm dealing with cross-border sewage, et cetera. Without the EPA, we'd be lost. So we do appreciate the great work, and this cross-border work at the EPA has been groundbreaking and fundamental for so long, probably since the beginning of NAFTA. And the partnership with the North American Development Bank, it's all what cross-border collaboration should be. So really glad that you're here, Melissa, and again, Lorena, who I've known for a long time as well, to give an update. So thanks.
Great. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. Thanks for the invite. And it's so nice to be here. I am currently sitting in New York City. I'm making my way out to California this summer. I have been, as Chair Dedina said, I've been at EPA for a little over 15 years. And prior to that, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in El Salvador for 3 years. Then started in Region 2 New York City office working on community involvement with my first site was actually World Trade Center cleanup. So I've done quite a bit of work with communities throughout my career as I transitioned to working internationally with other ministries of environment throughout Latin America, the Middle East, and North Africa on public participation and conflict resolution. So I'm really happy to transition to the San Diego border office. I've been here for roughly about 3 months, and it's been great. My colleagues are wonderful. As you know, you mentioned earlier, EPA is just a great place to work, and whether it's in New York City and Washington or California. So I'm just going to jump right into the presentation. So as you can see on this map right here, that is what we would consider per the 1983 La Paz Agreement. That's what we define as the U.S.-Mexico border region, 62 miles along the, both sides of the border. And that includes 2 countries, obviously, 10 states along, and then we have sister city pairs and 24 federally recognized tribes, as well as 6 sister city pairs. I'm going to go to next slide. Great. So you can see here there's a timeline. The border agreement really started in 1983 with the La Paz Agreement, as I mentioned, and then it's had various iterations throughout the time since 1983, but it really focuses on environmental health and environment and public health along the border. Right now, we're in our Border 2020 program, and that was a 5-year program we'll be completing. While we're still have ongoing projects this year, we'll be completing most of our projects through this year and next. We have a new effort that's coming up, and that's Border 2025. Go to the next slide. Great. So under Border 2020, these are our main goals. We have air, water, waste, emergency response, and compliance. But I want to mention that it's really been with focus on improving children's health and protecting disadvantaged and underserved communities. The Border 2020 takes a real bottoms-up approach with regional task forces that identify priorities and have 2-year action plans that account for resources and project implementation. Next slide. So one of our main roles of the program is to serve as a convener in the border region and facilitate dialogue around important environmental topics. So as all of us, right now are doing, we moved to a lot of our activities to virtual platform. We've held many binational task force meetings with California and Baja California on waste and air quality. We've held many tribal outreach sessions to discuss the border program activities. Our tribal partners are an important part of our work. And then we've also had webinars on children's health, wildfire smoke, cleaning and sanitizing with disinfectants for COVID, and put out a bunch of PSAs for the fires that were happening in California. One thing I do want to mention is that we have a new border tribal liaison. Her name is Emily Pimentel. So she'll be working closely with the tribes throughout this next Border 2025 program. Next slide, please. So just to take a look at some of the projects that we've funded, and Chair Dedina mentioned our partnership with NADBank, which I'll get into in a second, or the North American Development Bank. But we do fund projects on both sides of the border, and air quality improvement, materials and waste, environmental health, emergency response. And we have initiatives for rainwater harvesting and green infrastructure, environmental enforcement, compliance, and industry stewardship. So we've had quite a bit of projects over the past 8 years, and this is just a breakdown of those projects. I do want to highlight a couple for you. Next slide, please. So, we do work very closely, our program to serve border communities, and we have a cooperative agreement with the North American Development Bank. We have 3 ongoing projects currently in the California Baja region. We have one air quality project that's using geographic information systems for data availability and environmental justice analysis. Another one on water quality and waste project using innovative ways to look at trash and marine litter in the Tijuana River Valley. And then another on emergency preparedness response project that enhances emergency preparedness and response along the Mexicali Imperial Valley border region. There are other projects that we've closed out in the past 15 months that have been really important for the program, and we'll continue to collaborate with those NGOs in the future on those, just following up with them on the projects. Next slide, please. So environmental justice is a priority for our administration. And I wanted to highlight some of the offices, the EPA offices and programs that we work with to leverage resources along the border program. We have a EJ Small Grants program that is actually for anyone interested, or if you know NGOs that might be interested, we have an application date that's on. All of the applications are due on June 1st. So that's something to highlight. We have also a webinar this coming Monday about anticipated additional funds. So through the, I forget the name of the act, but we just received quite a bit of funding for EJ grants. And for anyone interested, if you're looking to apply for those funds, Monday would be a good time to join. And I believe this presentation is actually on the SANDAG website. We also have a webinar series that is upcoming on May 5th for environmental justice and systemic racism for anyone interested. Next slide, please. One of our major ways to get information out is using our bilingual newsletter that highlights a lot of different programs and projects that are happening, as well as gives upcoming funding opportunities. You can find these publications in the links provided and listed, and these are have been made available also to with our partners at Cal EPA. Next slide, please. May 3rd to 7th upcoming is Air Quality Awareness Week. For those who work on air quality, it goes without saying that we hope that you'll participate. And for others, while air quality might not always be on your mind, here are some particular webinars that will be happening during the week, and we hope you join us. Next slide. So this year, we're closing out our 2019-2020 action plans that have been developed for the region. And the plans highlight Border 2020 actions that have been implemented in coordination with our partners and stakeholders. We'll continue to host multiple virtual meetings. We have a couple upcoming ones in the California region, and we'll be releasing our next newsletter in July. Some of the other actions that will be happening is we have a NGO forum that will be coming up in just 2 weeks. We'll be working with NGOs to talk about how we can further collaborate with our work along the border. There's also a request for proposals that will be coming out in the end of June, and that will be for our funding for projects on both sides of the border for 2021. Next slide. So we are about to launch our 2020 plan, our Border 2020 plan, or I'm sorry, Border 2025 plan in coordination with Semarnat, our partner in Mexico. We hope that this will be signed within the next couple of weeks, sometime this spring. We do have quite a bit of work going on with our partners already. So as we continue that work and wait for the new plan to come out, if you could go to the next slide, please. We have very similar goals. We just do not have enforcement and compliance in the Border 2025 program. But I will say that the one emphasis that is new is on climate change and on environmental justice. So stay tuned for more projects and funding that goes towards those, the special emphasis of the program. Next slide. So this, again, these are the new goals under Border 2025. And, as always, it's to protect human health, or excuse me, protect the environment, public health in the US-Mexico border region, consistent with the principles of sustainable development that have been in place for since 1983. Next slide, please. So how do we get our information out? We have regional coordinators and task forces that work together to create action plans. And then we use those action plans to guide our work throughout the program. So we'll be, once the 2025 program is created, we'll be creating those action plans and moving forward with our task forces. Next slide, please. So please, stay informed. We encourage you to follow us on our EPA Region 9 Twitter page for more information on not just what's going on in the border, but also just generally what's going on in the EPA Region 9 office, as well as joining our listserv that has important information about upcoming events and projects, as well as funding opportunities. And next slide. And you're welcome to contact me anytime. My information is here, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. So thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Melissa. Do you have time to answer any questions or from the?
Yeah, I do. I have about 3 minutes.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments? I don't see any hands raised, but any questions or comments? Gustavo de la Fuente is there. Go ahead, Gustavo.
Hi, Melissa. How are you today?
Hi, Gustavo.
I represent the San Diego Tijuana Smart Border Coalition, and I wanted to ask you about your relationship with NADBank and how we can get more work done on the Mexican side of the border when it comes to fixing the sewage problem, which I'm sure many people on this call understand, particularly Mayor Dedina. So, yes, a lot of money earmarked through USMCA, 300 million, what have you. Most of that money apparently is going to be spent on the US side of the border. Not a lot. We don't hear a lot of money being spent on the Mexican side, or at least marked to be spent on the Mexican side of the border. So what's going on with NADBank? How can we get NADBank to do more on the Mexican side? It seems to me that they're waiting for you. They're waiting for the EPA to kind of let them know what they need to do.
Well, I will say, first of all, thanks for your question. The USMCA money is separate from the money that we receive for the EPA US-Mexico border program. So our program is separate from that. My colleagues in our water office would really be the people that you would need to ask. But our partners at the IBWC also are collaborating with our Office of Water. They're really taking charge of that 300 million that you're mentioning. That is not, unfortunately, that is not our office. I wish we had 300 million to address the sewage issues. Although, with our new money that's coming up, there will be opportunities to apply for grants on both sides of the border to address some of those issues. And that's, we'll be putting our RFP out June 28th, I believe. Right, Lorena?
How much money can you actually grant out, by the way? If let's say we're talking about doing a pilot project for water in Tijuana just to prove something, how much money could we count on? I mean,
right. Well, it'll depend on, we haven't finalized the cap just yet. We don't have, I will say our money is down from previous years because the way that our office works is the funding is a little bit behind. So it was allocated a year ago, so under the previous administration. So our funding right now is a little lower than we're normal, but we encourage you to look at the RFP and apply. And we love pilot projects that can be replicated in other areas along the border.
Both sides,
Any other
right?
questions?
Mexico and the US. So it would be on both sides, correct?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, and I see Vice Chair Moreno has her hand up as well.
Hi, good afternoon. It's
Hi.
nice to meet you. My staff usually attends your meetings, and I thank you for the presentation. And I should have said I'm Vivian Moreno. I'm the council member for the city of San Diego, and I have the distinct honor of representing Otay Mesa Port of Entry, the San Isidro Port of Entry, which are two of North America's most, in my opinion, most important transportation hubs, and also the Tijuana River Valley. And I live less than a mile away from the Tijuana River Valley, so I have the distinct honor of smelling the contamination that flows rampant. I live in San Isidro, so we have an international environmental disaster with hazardous toxins flowing into communities where I live. And transborder water studies have identified high amounts of metal, such as copper and zinc, that get deposited into this very important riparian habitat. Ammonia and DEHP, which is a common chemical used in the production of plastic, has also been detected in the water. And although we've begun seeing results last year when our local delegation of elected officials secured over $300 million in federal funding to help combat the pollution. The wastewater pollution issues have been impacting my communities for far too long. And it's not something that as a city we could solve by ourselves. We absolutely need assistance from the EPA to address this disaster, to take a more prominent role. This is a binational issue. It requires a binational solution. And I'm imploring you for our help. I understand we're talking about two sovereign nations working together, and this is absolutely no easy task, but with our new administration, I just really hope the EPA I'm here to advocate for the EPA to take a stronger leadership role in this environmental disaster. And so it's not a question, it's a comment. I obviously look forward to discussing this matter further so that we could find a solution for this. But I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your presentation, and I look forward to chatting with you more. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Yes, I mean, our colleagues in our water office, I'm sure would be happy to follow up or possibly join another time to talk about that money that's allocated in the work they're doing. So Lorena, I see your hand up and I actually have to go. I apologize that I have to run, but I have a prior
Dina, we
commitment.
have two hands raised, one from the
Great, well, thanks for
panelists and
listening.
one.
I guess we're turning it over to Lorena. Is that right, Lorena?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to add that I think the formula that has worked well for us is that working with the North American Development Bank gives us the opportunity to move our monies directly into Mexico, not only with NGO representatives, as well as working with academia and other key organizations that help us address some of these key issues. And thank you for your comments. We definitely can bring back more information as it relates to some of the questions that came up. But also just to emphasize that the Board 2020 program or Board 2025 does establish a strong platform to work with all kinds of stakeholders. We had different kind of partnerships in place. And as Melissa noted, we have an RFP coming up in 2021 through or in coordination with the North American Development Bank. So we can also definitely provide more information on that.
Chair Dedina, we still have a hand from Denise.
I'm unmuted. Sorry. is Lorena taking over for you to answer questions?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go, but thank you
Right.
so much. Take care.
Great. I can't see you as her hand up, so if you wanna, call them. Oh, I see Denise down below.
This is Denise. Hi, everybody. I just stuck my hand up when Gustavo was talking. Oh. Can you hear
I'm
me?
assuming that's Denise Ducheney, our former
Yes.
state senator. Okay, everyone would know her as Denise. but Okay, just
Can you
so
hear
we're
me?
clear on that. Go ahead, continue.
Sorry, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
I just wanted to, I raised my hand when Gustavo was talking to just make the point about NADBank, that the money that we can spend across the border is the one that a lot of you have helped with in the past. And with this new administration, we need to make a new push in the president's budget and in the congressional budget hearings for the Border Water Infrastructure Fund.
Okay.
That's the funding that goes to NADBank that's used as what we commonly know as the Border Environmental Infrastructure Fund. And that's the money we've been using to do the work in Tijuana on the what is it, those connectors and some of that stuff. A lot of the money we can use for that is from that program, which once upon a time, 20 years ago, was funded at 100 million a year. If we could even get it back to 25, 30 million, we got about 30 million, I think 25 or 30 million last year. If we could get that steadily over several year period, then we would be in a stronger position to make planning. But the problem has been that money has been unreliable, and it went down as low as 5 million a year at one point. And so if we can get that money on a stable footing, then we can make plans on how to spend it. And a lot of it will go to Tijuana. I mean, we have to spend it across the entire border. So the more we have, the better chance we have to get some of it here. Because there are needs obviously in South Texas and a lot of other areas too. But if we could get that fund back up to the snuff, where I think we're in a better position now to spend it. So I just wanted to make that pitch for all of you who talk to Washington people and such.
Great point. Are there additional questions or comments? I'm not sure, Lorena, if you want to address that. Denise always has the last word anyway, so.
Quite knowledgeable. Thank you, Denise, for your comments. And I agree. 100 million was wonderful. And, I went to working with 5 or 10 million. So, and the challenges continue on the border, in the border regions. So it's always important to have a joint voice, I think. Thank you.
Are there additional questions or comments? Okay, with
There
that.
are no hands raised, Chair Dedina.
I'm sorry?
There are no hands raised.
Yeah, well, thanks. Melissa's on, but Lorena's here. And then, maybe you might want to mention, Lorena, to Melissa, I didn't mention, I mentioned this to Deborah Sullivan, the head of Region 9, given Administrator Reagan's commitment to environmental justice and health, we hope that he understands that we expect him to see him really soon. It's an invite, but it's really an expectation that this is arguably the, most problematic environmental justice and health zone on the planet in North America, easily, whether it's air emissions and water emissions and, solid waste and trash, but also a great example where we're trying to figure out how to work together on both sides of the border. So we hope the message gets up, Shane, that we would expect him here soon.
Thank you. We'll share that with our OIDA colleagues, which some of them already. So thank you.
Because we look forward to talking to him more about how we can get the EPA a lot more money. I think, we're the money machine here, like all of us have to work together. No, but it's actually been really inspiring. Again, I want to thank everybody here. It's been a really robust partnership with San Diego Chamber of Commerce, our colleagues in Tijuana, Gustavo at the Smart Border Coalition, bipartisan group of elected officials and agencies working together across the border to get money for NADBank and the EPA. So I think we need to continue that, but this is a complex issue. But I think to my colleagues, we also have to remember that we need to be fluent in the language of the Paris Climate Treaty and emissions reductions, the Green New Deal, infrastructure. This is all good stuff on the border. Everything we're doing on the border is the best kind of infrastructure that reduces emissions, reduces greenhouse gas emissions, toxic emissions, uses energy more efficiently, and all that helps the United States and Mexico reach our climate reduction goals under the Paris Climate Treaty, and just makes things a lot better for our kids and families who have the highest rates of asthma, among the highest rates of asthma in the United States, and obviously suffering disproportionately from water pollution and air emissions from sewage now. So, and then the loss of open space from all the solid waste that's coming across the border and sediment. So this is a great opportunity to actually turn the tide. And I've been using the word a lot. We're in debt. We have an infrastructure debt. We have a debt to the community. We have to pay back and we have to pay it forward. And the only way we're going to do that is get significant amounts of money to invest in infrastructure. But hopefully we have American workers working on with the money that we raised as well on this side of the border, as well as helping fund projects in Mexico as well. So with that, we'll turn it over to the next item. But thank you so much, Lorena. We appreciate your long history of service and always helping to do the right thing and make things better. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And with that, we will go to item, which was item number 2, and that's item number 5, I'm sorry. Overview of U.S. General Services Administration projects, the San Ysidro and the Otay Mesa land ports of entry. And Anthony's here. If you want to talk to someone who's NASA level space age planning and mastery of infrastructure, then you would talk to Anthony Klepp from the GSA. I've had the pleasure of being in his presence when he does his speed talk about all the amazing hundreds of millions of dollars he's invested in making the border more efficient, which I do appreciate. And I've seen his projects go over time. It's also been a great template and model for me just to see how you make these projects happen and the complex and coordinated efforts with agencies on both sides of the border to do that. And no one has done it better than Anthony. So take it away, Anthony. Again, thanks for all your good work.
Chair Medina, Councilmember Moreno, and to all the members of the Sandag Borders Committee, thank you so much for inviting me. Even virtually, this is my favorite group to come and speak with because of the level of passion and the level of service that y'all bring to the U.S.-Mexico border. It is such an important driver of our economy, and really it's what makes the San Diego Tijuana region so powerful is the work of all of us. So next slide, please. Next slide. So I was kind of happy. Hector Venegas called me a couple weeks ago and said, hey, can you, in addition to talking about the Otay Mesa Port of Entry, can you give us a little closeout of the San Ysidro Port of Entry and to get a chance to talk about our great project is exciting. And it was really interesting when I was going through files and trying to find the best pictures to show San Ysidro then. It was really hard because there are so many great photos of the new San Ysidro Port of Entry. But for those of us who've been around for a while, remember the old brutalist Port of Entry in San Ysidro. Next slide. And over the last 10 years, GSA has had the benefit of working closely with the community and closely with our partners in Mexico on a complete renovation of the Port of Entry. Next slide, please. I want to take a second and congratulate our partners in Mexico. This is a terrible photo, but this shows the new 8 lanes that Mexico has constructed to lead into the Port of Entry. As folks are aware right now, because of the border closure, these 8 lanes have not been brought into service. And I asked the folks down at the port to get me a good photo, and unfortunately they couldn't get past the fence. But it's exciting because when the border reopens fully and when the travel restrictions are eased, we have an additional 8 lanes that are going to lead into 15 new northbound inspection booths, which are going to provide great throughput. And I want to thank our partners in Mexico, particularly for making these lanes accessible to all travelers. It's a real benefit. And again, I think it's important to note the amazing level of partnership that we've been able to enjoy with both the San Diego region and with the Mexican government. Next slide, please. So my friend Ramon Riesgo, who's actually on this presentation today, said, hey, let's actually mention all the work we did in kind of meeting with folks. And so it was interesting. We did over 42 community representative committee meetings, the CRC meetings. We did 71 presentations to local groups, which includes the Sandag Borders Committee. Ramon led 34 binational technical meetings, our Tiger Team meetings with the Mexican government. And then we did 28 high-level presentations, things like the Bridges and Border Commission, the JWC 24th Century Border. We also participated in numerous border liaison meetings locally. And it was really, that interaction was really critical. And it's something that we've actually not had the benefit of over the last year and a half because of the COVID. And we're looking forward to being able to kind of re-engage with the community, particularly as the new Otay Mesa modernization comes online. Next slide, please. And then finally, my favorite shot of the port of entry, kind of showing just kind of the difference and the improvement, and actually the kind of the level of a facility benefiting and appropriate for a dynamic region like the San Diego Tijuana region. And with that, we're going to move over to Otay. Next slide, please. Next slide. So GSA, throughout the shutdown, has been working on the modernization of the Otay Mesa Port of Entry. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the project, this is part of expansion and renovation of the 50-acre campus. Kind of the highlights, we're expanding pedestrian inspection from 6 to 12 booths. That's really important. As you may or may not be aware, a lot of the growth in Tijuana is happening out to the east. About a year and a half ago, MTS started a bus rapid transit out of Otay Mesa to serve downtown. So workers who cross at Otay Mesa have a strong transit point to get into downtown. As part of our project, we're actually constructing a new northbound pedestrian ramp, which is going to better connect to the Otay Mesa Transit Center, reducing that walk by about 100 yards, which for someone who has to walk it twice a day is a big deal. We're expanding commercial inspection from 9 to 16 booths. But more importantly, we're totally changing the entrance to the port of entry for commercial vehicles and cleaning up which had been a 90-degree turn for all vehicles, and for most vehicles that were cleared for, the 90% of vehicles that were cleared for immediate exit had to make a 180-degree hairpin turn. That's being cleaned up, and I'll show that in a graphic in a second. We're constructing a new public-facing building, which we're calling the Commercial Annex Building. That building is going to handle things like I-9 permits. It's going to be the Century Enrollment Center. It's going to be that place where people who are coming to the port of entry to interact with CBP will go, and it's going to prevent them from having to go into the secure portions of the port. So really, it creates that sterile area for CBP to do their mission, and provides a friendly public-facing building for people who come to the port to again do those to get the Disneyland permits or other interactions with CBP. We're constructing a new Federal Motor Carriers bus inspection facility for commercial buses that are crossing the border. And then also we're using some tenant-funded money from USDA to construct a new plant inspection facility, which will actually be the plant inspection station for plant material coming in through the San Diego port, through the San Diego airport, or across the international border at Otay Mesa. Next slide, please. So here's our schedule. We have, as you can see, the project is in construction now. Design's complete. One of the first things that's going to open up is the new northbound bridge to the MTS facility. In January, we're going to be opening up the Return to Mexico lane, which I'm going to have a graphic and I'll talk to in a minute, as well as our new commercial annex building, with the full project complete in February of 23. Next slide, please. So here you can kind of see the overhead of the site plan. And you can see over on the east side or right-hand side of the picture, you can see that primary inspection array, and we've taken it from being parallel to the Mexican border to being perpendicular to the Mexican border. And I'll show you in a second a graphic that shows why we've done that. The other thing we've done is we've moved hazmat, which used to be over in the export side of the house, into the import side of the house, which allows us to handle those hazardous material imports in a cleaner and more efficient way without interfering with the export activities. Next slide, please. One of the things that the port lacked before is it was kind of, you got there and you didn't know you were there. And so as part of our project, you can see this is the commercial annex building, and then kind of a wall that is going to be the kind of entry point for the port of entry. Next slide. So here you can see a rendering of the new commercial lanes. And so basically, for those of you who are familiar with it, vehicles come across the Tijuana River, make a turn to the right, and then previously they had to come up about 100 yards and then make a 90-degree turn north to come into the port of entry. Now it's going to be a gentle turn into these perpendicular facing expanded commercial primary booths. For the 90% of vehicles that are cleared and released to leave the port of entry, it's a straight shot through these exit booths that you see in the kind of center of the lower center of the graphic. And then for vehicles that are identified for further inspection, you can see just north of those export booths, a lane that kind of brings them into the secondary inspection for things like non-intrusive inspection or to go to the commercial docks. Next slide, please. And here's a current aerial. You can see on the right-hand side of the screen, we're doing a significant amount of site work. We're actually working on the hazardous material. We're working on the USDA facility. We're working on a parking garage for CBP officers and the commercial annex building. Next slide, please. And you can see the new cab building in construction. And you can see we're already got the roof deck up and we're working on the walls. Next slide. So this is that return to Mexico lane. So many of you may not be aware that about 6 times a day, a truck gets up to the primary booths and for whatever reason, it's denied entry into the US. What used to happen is that vehicle had to kind of go into the port of entry, come out in a kind of through the primary lanes, and actually go down the northbound lanes back into Mexico, basically taking one lane of traffic out of service and kind of creating havoc in the lanes. As part of this project and through our coordination with Mexico, we've been able to get Mexico to agree to a new return to Mexico truck lane. So we'll have basically a sterile corridor that will, the vehicles that are denied entry into the US will be taken into the secondary area and then taken to a gate, and then I'll have a roadway that's dedicated for southbound trucks to enter back into Mexico without having to interact or interfere with the northbound truck flow. These are the kinds of changes that we're trying to do to improve the efficiency and the overall functionality of the Otay Mesa Port of Entry. Next slide, please. So I talked earlier about the first piece of this project that is coming to fruition is this northbound pedestrian ramp that leads into the MTS facility. I want to give a shout out to my friend Beverly Neff, who's on the call from MTS. Beverly has been working closely with the GSA communications group. MTS was kind enough to actually relocate their bus pickup in Otay Mesa for about 9 months to allow us to construct this facility and to create basically an open area for the construction without having to move pedestrians through a construction zone, which was really not really possible during this project. So again, we work closely with MTS and Sandag on that. Next slide, please. Here you can see the landing. So we have an at-grade landing, and you can see the canopy that'll protect pedestrians from the elements as they come through. again, we think this is really important. If you go back to the port of entry in the past, it was always not the most comfortable place for pedestrians to get on transit. It was not always a simple place for pedestrians to kind of identify where they needed to go. And through our partnership with MTS and Sandag, we've been able to really make improvements to those pedestrians that are crossing. Again, with the doubling of the pedestrian plaza or pedestrian processing as part of this project, we think a lot more pedestrians are going to be choosing to cross at Otay Mesa, and particularly with the benefit of the MTS BRT that is going to be picking them up at the port. Next slide, please. That's it. So with that, I'd like to open to any questions that folks may have. And again, I want to thank the Sandag Borders Committee for allowing me to come and talk to you again.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Anthony. Again, really complicated and complex work, but I do appreciate the fact that you and your team are really thoughtful about trying to make it a nicer place, and having really quality architecture and public spaces for the sea of humanity that crosses the border. So probably like a lot of you, I've had some of the best experiences and maybe the worst experiences of my life crossing that border. And every range of human activity and interaction that you could possibly have, things that can go wrong, but also really nice people that you meet and experiences. And so it has gotten a lot better, that's for sure. So anyway, with that, I'll turn it over to Vice Chair Moreno.
Thank you. I still remember crossing that border, parking my car and waiting until 5 a.m. until it opened up when I was a teenager. So very, very good memories. But
hey, what were you doing? I'm sorry, what were you doing? Okay, never mind. We won't ask you questions.
I might have been at Baby Rock, but that's a whole nother story for another day. But I want to thank you for the presentation. It's always great to meet and to hear from Anthony Klepp and all the U.S. General Service Administration staff. They always bring good news for our region. And I want to thank you guys for all the work in San Ysidro Port of Entry and Otay Mesa Land Port of Entry. We know this cross-border travel and commerce is the backbone of our region, and it really allows us to compete at an international level. And I think as we move forward, it's critical that we continue to invest in our border infrastructure, not only locally, statewide, but nationwide. In February of this year, Sandag presented a study of the impact of border delays at the Baja California Land Port of Entry. I think it was impactful to see the amount of jobs that are being lost due to the wait times and how border delays have a direct impact on millions of dollars of commerce throughout the nation, not just here, and not to mention the greenhouse gas emissions affecting the air quality of border communities like the ones I represent and the one I live in. The Otay Mesa Port of Entry and the San Ysidro Port of Entry are two of the most significant transportation hubs in North America. And I want to continue saying that because I believe it to be true, right? I think the numbers have shown that this is one of the most important regions of North America. And it's great to see GSA upgrade these very important gateways. The Otay Mesa Port of Entry, for those who don't know, ranks second amongst all the US border crossings in total truck crossing volume in 2019. And 2019 was another record year in terms of the value of trade via truck through Otay Mesa Port of Entry, totaling nearly $50 billion. And as an elected official, I have been a strong advocate for border infrastructure, promoting cross-border commerce, and strongly focusing on reducing these greenhouse gas emissions. And it's really interesting because a few years ago, not that many years ago, as a staffer, I noticed there was a capital improvement project, the modernization of Otay Mesa Port of Entry, that only had about $100,000 to its name. And it's so significant to hear this update today that focuses on promoting our goals for Otay Mesa Port of Entry. And I might add, I think I was lobbying Anthony to get the Otay Mesa modernization project moving forward, much to his chagrin probably. But here we are, and thank you for the presentation, and thank you, Anthony, for your continued advocacy, and for everybody in the GSA team. We really appreciate everything you guys do for our region.
And well, Councilman Moreno, I'll just say it was 121.8 million. But yeah, for border projects, it's a relatively small number. But you know, I think you bring in an important point, and that is that these projects are really about developing economic opportunity for the regions we serve and the country as a whole. And so this is one of those projects that, despite having a relatively small budget, has an oversized impact on the benefit for the region and for the commercial environments there in San Diego Tijuana region.
Great, well, thanks. I know I see both thank you and hand up. And if I'm missing anybody, let me know.
Serge, can I jump in? Thank you.
I'm so sorry. Okay, go ahead, Bud.
Okay, thanks, Serge. Anthony, it is always a pleasure to have you with us. You're besides being a great, effective GSA employee, you are such a wonderfully personal person to have deliver these reports. And we can feel from the passion that you have for this, that the success is not just because you're good at your job, but because you really have your heart in the right place. And so anytime I get to hear from you is great. The beauty of what's happening at the existing OTAI is the economic improvements. And we're already seeing on the other side of the border, from the Amazon warehouse to the other improvements in the area, that economic development that you just touched on in your comments. And Vivian, right on the money with all yours as well. But I want to ask how this particular border project is complementing, designed to work with the OTAI 2 crossing that Sandag is working so diligently on, in terms of the tolled crossing and the commercial improvements and all the things that are being incorporated in that project, and how those two will develop synergy between them.
Great question, sir. You know, I think it's important, and actually I'm going to talk a little bit about San Ysidro for a second. So when we built San Ysidro and we did the modernization of San Ysidro, we were like, wow, this is great. We're going to be solving problems for the next 30 years and everything's going to be fine. And the reality is that we created a tremendous amount of capacity. We're going to be delivering some additional capacity this year. And even with that, we've seen wait times greatly improve over the last 2 years as that latent demand develops and people realize that this is a functionally or better functioning border, and then people they come. And again, I think it speaks to the dynamic nature of the San Diego Tijuana region. So when we looked at the OTAI Mesa modernization project, when we did the technical feasibility study for it back in 2017 or 2016, we realized that we were not going to be able to massively expand the size of the facility. And so as you can see, we're adding some primary booths and we're adding a lot to the improvements in circulation, and really a lot of the challenges that OTAI Mesa experienced were based on the truck circulation within the port. But there's not any real additional capacity that's being constructed. There's going to be some capacity enhancements that occur through improvement of the circulation. But we know that in 10 or 15 years, we're going to be in another situation where we're going to have tremendous waits. And so that third door is really critical. I think that today we could fill up OTAI East on a non-commercial basis. One of the things that the sponsors are working on, and GSA is working with the sponsors on this project, is they're looking at different ways to serve the commercial interests in that binational flow. And so they're going to be able to provide solutions that probably aren't baked into the OTAI Mesa port of entry. And so, I've been involved in land ports for 15 years, which is a relatively short amount of time. We've seen tremendous changes in the technology. We've seen tremendous changes in the way goods move through the U.S.-Mexico border. That's going to continue. And a facility like OTAI Mesa East may have the opportunity to create additional services or additional functions that don't, haven't even really come to our mind yet. And so there's a cheaper, better, faster kind of approach that they can take to some of these things. And so in some ways, Otay Mesa East is going to be a proving grounds for commercial and non-commercial traffic. And we're excited to be part of it.
Fantastic. This project's in great hands, and thanks for the report today. Keep up the good work.
Councilmember Shu, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Benita. I wanted to ask a question, kind of a detailed design question with regards to both facilities, but Otay Mesa. But before I do that, I just want to, I'm new to this committee, and I'm not going to lose my opportunity to talk about my dream of having an international train and really solve a lot of our border issues and pollution problems. So Anthony, I hope you're around when GSA is ready to build a high-speed train into Tijuana. With your experience in collaborating with Mexico, we'll have something that really works well. My question, though, has to do with whenever I see a facility that is so much in demand, sometimes we don't do enough to try to make it better, simply because we see so many people use it. We think it's sufficient. So what I want to specifically deal with is when I've crossed the border the few times I have to walk a long distance, and it's, for me personally, it's not a big problem. I like walking. It's not a problem. But when I go to airports and I need to walk a long distance, airports have other tools to help you with regards to these walkways that move, all escalators. They do all kinds of things so that the traveler actually doesn't have to walk that far, even though the plane is a long distance. I'm thinking if GSA has thought of that. So as you're finishing these projects, can we put in some things to help people who have to walk these long distances? Maybe they could just stand and the jetway will take them along.
Thanks. We actually had so many conversations. Actually, Councilmember Moreno probably remembers a lot of these conversations. So one of the challenges at the border is that when we talk mega borders, we're not kidding. If you look at a port of entry like San Isidro, where you have 30,000 pedestrians a day crossing, queuing, crossing, walking. There's actually consideration of all that time. So when we looked at the port, we looked at things like the people movers, the moving walkways, and the reality is that from a durability standpoint, they're not robust enough. The systems don't exist to operate in these extremely difficult environments. The other thing is that CBP utilizes the spacing as a way of controlling the people controlling folks as they come through to create secure areas. And so, and sometimes that walking distance is really, it provides them the space to allow folks to, separate and be processed through in a metered function or fashion. So we looked at it, it wasn't appropriate. But I will say that we have spent a tremendous amount of effort in making the experience more comfortable for folks. So if you go back, 5 years to San Isidro, there was no shading for folks. So if it was raining, you got wet. If it was hot, you got hot. If it was sunny, you got sunburned. And so now the experience for pedestrians walking through San Isidro is there's covered walkways. We use PV walkways so that photovoltaic. So we're creating power and shading the people as they come through. We've done a lot of things to create comfortable, safe experiences. We have benches for people to sit in locations. We have facilities for once they're processed through, they can use the restroom. Those kinds of things we can and do to make the experience better for our pedestrians. And then, as you saw when we were talking about Otay Mesa, creating covered walkways and creating gentle ramps and creating better cement walkways so that people don't have to trip on the asphalt. Things like that we can do and we have put in place in our projects. But again, it's a great question. I will say, I don't think I'm going to be around for the train. I'm going to retire in 5 years. I'm looking forward to it. And then I'm going to be another person who crosses the border like everyone else. It'll be great.
Thank you, Anthony.
Great, I know we have Gustavo, thanks, Jack, and we have Gustavo Fuente. Wait, and just in honor of Jack, I think we have had discussions of rail projects, but in honor of Jack Hsu, we will bring back, let's have a focused effort on transit connections on the border. No, it's important, we're in a new era, right? So let's think about, we talked about the big projects, but a lot going on in transit connections, bike connections, and walking connections, and then rail connections. I'll talk to our amazing staff, but how can we have a program on that? So we cover that stuff. We did the same thing on public safety a few years ago with lifeguards and firefighters. And so let's get a deep dive into that, just like we've been doing equity and all kinds of other issues, because this is important stuff. I know the bike stuff had been prioritized about 6 years ago, and then I'm not sure what happened, but we need to bring that focus back. We had a good group and we have the border bikeway kind of going to the Bay, which is going through Vice Chair Moreno's district. So and IB. So we'll do that in honor of you being a new member, Jack, and your good focus on that kind of stuff and emissions reduction. So thanks for bringing up rail. And then the other person who's got an encyclopedic knowledge of all things border and helping to do everything on the border is Gustavo Lafuente. Take it away, Gustavo.
Thank you. I didn't know we were going to run out of time. Anthony, I wanted to thank you. I've seen you in a number of conferences, and it's always nice to hear you because you're very positive. And as somebody said here, as Mayor Dedina, I think that you always bring us good news. Vivian said that. So, you know, and with Mr. Hsu, what he said, you know, that brings to light a few things. You know, as you're doing these projects like the modernization at Otay Mesa and others, have you ever thought about kind of a little bit of outside the box and saying to your Mexican counterparts, well, since we're going to modernize our side of the port, why don't we get together and modernize the Mexican side of the port? Because as you do these projects, the US side looks fantastic, looks great. And it just makes the Mexican side look so much, you know, of a contrast. And you've got people who are actually waiting in the sun in terrible circumstances. And all of a sudden they get to this incredibly modern place. You know, we've got a great example here. We have Caltrans and Sandag working with Mexican SCT, with the state of Baja California, and now they're going to put this port together for the first time ever, really work together to get the port done. Is that the future? Is that the future of the GSA as you build these ports and modernize them? Why don't you get your Mexican counterparts on board, or find a way? I know they don't have as big of a budget as you do. But why don't we work together based on those examples?
What a great question. And thanks for asking that. So yes, you know, actually, I mentioned earlier that my friend and colleague Ramon Riesgo is on this meeting. Ramon has done a phenomenal job of developing a level of cadence to the relationship with Mexico on our projects, both here in California, Arizona, as well as over in Region 7 with the Texas and New Mexico border. We're different governments. We have different budgeting processes. We have different budgeting horizons. And so as a result, you know, our project stands alone, their project stand alone. But we have done a tremendous amount of work with our Mexican colleagues in trying to develop a sense of understanding of when things were going to happen. So, for example, and I think San Isidro was really probably the gold standard for this, where we were meeting with Mexico, you know, almost monthly at a technical level. We were talking to them 3 or 4 times a year on a planning level. And so there was a very long horizon that we had to work out a lot of the collaboration and coordination of the border. We still had things that didn't fall quite in line. You can look at things like the opening of El Chaparral, which we had 9 months notice on, and we had to make a lot of changes to accommodate the Mexican project. We had the opening of Head West, where we had some temporary facilities in Mexico on the Mexican side that were not as good as the permanent facilities. And so there is always a little bit of back and forth, a little bit of a challenge. But what I will say is that there seems to be a real shared belief that this is the time for the U.S.-Mexico border. There is so much good happening on both sides of the border. When we were met with Mexico, and I won't speak for the Mexican government, but I'll say that we had a binational meeting, and we were talking about the expansion of the Otay Mesa pedestrian facility. Mexico was quick to talk about how, as part of their efforts, they're creating nice shading and a revised pedestrian approach for people coming into the U.S. from at Otay Mesa. So those kinds of things are happening. I think you can look at projects like, this is outside of San Diego, but Algodones Andrade, where the Mexicans have put in great amenities for people coming into the U.S. on the Mexican side of the border. So I think that there's a because they do things different, there's differences in the way that the projects align. Because their budgeting is different, there's different priorities that are brought to bear, and there's maybe a shorter term horizon that they budget in based on the way the administrations work. But I think that there is a genuine shared commitment to expand and improve the condition for these people who cross the border every day and really bring so much benefit to both nations and the communities on each side of the border. And I think that you're seeing I have seen in the 15 years that I've been involved in this program, huge improvements on both sides of the border, and just the overall way that we look at the border community, I think is improving. And so I think it takes people like you who hold us accountable and who ask the tough questions. And I know that you ask the tough questions to the people in Mexico as well. And I think that's what it takes. It takes the communities and civil groups like the Sandag Borders Committee to really continue to demand excellence for these communities because they deserve it.
Great, thanks. Supervisor Anderson, I think I overlooked you and I saw your hand up. I'm not sure if you're still there or not, but if you had a question or comment.
Actually, it was answered, and so I withdrew my hand.
And again, if I overlooked you, I'm so sorry because I have a hard time managing this.
No, don't worry about it. It was
Okay.
all answered. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Are there additional? I don't see anybody else.
Chair Dedina, we do
Yes.
have a hand from the attendee side.
We do have a hand up.
Yes, Mike
Okay,
Aguirre.
Go ahead. Oh, Miguel. Hey, Miguel, how you doing? Go ahead. Are you there?
Yes, Serge, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can now. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hi. Yes, I wanted to say hi to Anthony. I can't see him anymore. And to Ramon in the background. Are you there,
Hey,
Anthony?
Miguel, it's good to see you, sir.
Don't worry.
Yeah. Hey, well, more than anything, I wanted to say hi, but I was sparked to speak here on some of the comments I'm hearing, and particularly Gustavo's here. Yeah, and the comment you made earlier, Anthony, which I think kind of says what, the planning culture has been at our port of entries. I hear a little background. I think somebody needs to mute their phone. How it is to expand our ports of entry, and you mentioned in the future we'll be maybe having to expand again. The volume of traffic is just overwhelming between the two cities. And I would like to, as we've had these discussions in the past about how there really is an opportunity for a smart growth pedestrian dynamic together with Sandag's planning for complete corridors. And I mean, what do we do, for example, in San Isidro? I mean, you see CBX is really a portal to beyond, and it's been very efficient. And Otay and Otay 2 continue to expand the commercial relationship. But the complete corridor between downtown San Diego and Tijuana really begs an economic development dynamic in the cross-border district that maybe in the future, when we look at Tijuana, we see the city going up, it's vertical. And that, I think, in a planning level begs that we have vertical development that maybe would integrate multi levels, segregated paths of travel, maybe even recapture some of that footprint, because what is San Isidro now, 50 acres or 100 acres? How much more do we expand it and really begin to dispossess the port of entry communities? So what are your views in multi-level port of entry future crossings, you know, underground, like Jack would like to see a maybe underground bullet train, or maybe above grade, a light rail, but vehicle crossing or other types of mobility really, I think, require vertical development rather than lateral expansion.
Wait, just Miguel, before you answer that question, did you really want to talk about the existing underground crossings, the informal crossings? Because that's, yeah, anyway, I'm joking, but anyway, go ahead, Anthony, sorry.
So first of all, great, really interesting question. And Miguel and I share a passion. And that is pedestrian throughput at the border. And so I don't know about building multiple layers of processing, and that may come to be at some point, you know, probably not in my lifetime. But what I will say is that we can't actually build San Isidro or Otay Mesa or Motay Mesa East to let everybody drive through. The reality is that our future has to be in expanding pedestrian throughput at the ports of entry. And the way that we're going to do that is by what Mayor Dedina was talking about earlier, which is non-motorized transportation, bicycles, PEDs, and a reliance on transit. Whether or not it's a train that goes shoots to the border and people can ride the train from one country to the other, or whether it's a smart train environment in Mexico and a smart train in the US, and people cross through and relight onto a new train. The reality is that our future in the US-Mexico border has to be based on a transit-based model. And so at a certain point, you know, we're going to stop being able to create ports big enough for everybody to drive. And so it's going to be incumbent on regions like San Diego and Tijuana and, you know, Brownsville and El Paso. It's going to be, you know, creating transit opportunities for that throughput, because really that's the way that CBP can most efficiently provide those processing. That's the way that GSA can most efficiently provide the facilities for the cross-border experience. And I'll just say that one of the mistakes that we made on San Isidro is that we focused on the vehicle first, and as a result, we had pedestrians that had to cross the very difficult environments for a number of years. And I think that what we will do in our future projects is probably focus on that pedestrian piece first, because in a lot of ways, that's where we can create the biggest change the fastest. And again, I'm hopeful that we can see that reliance on vehicles continue to lessen and to create really great transit opportunities and great pedestrian facilities at the border.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks. Hey, Gustavo, I know I see your hand up. We're almost out of time. I don't know if you have a short, very quick question, and Anthony, a quick answer so we can finish the meeting on time. I'm conscious of our time. Many of us have been in standing meetings all day. So anyway, go ahead.
No. You know what, Serge, this is going to take a little bit of time. So I'll take it offline.
Okay, great. Sorry. Anyway, good. Okay. Well, anyway, thanks everybody. Thanks, Anthony, so much for all your enthusiastic but really smart and strategic work, and actually getting real things done that make a big difference in improving the quality of life. Supervisor Anderson, do you have a question then, or?
No, I just want to make sure you knew I was paying attention.
No doubt. Okay, thank you. Anyway, we really appreciate it. And you know, you have improved my life. And you know, I walk now that it's easier to walk again. cross the border, I ditch the car when we cross, as much as possible. We have business on the other
I
side.
hope you loop me in. I hope you loop me into the transit discussion at the border, because again, it is something I think that's really important, and I think that it provides a real opportunity for both our GSA planning as well as regional planners. So thanks for
Yeah,
being
I'll work with Hector and our staff so we really get a deep dive into it. I think that'd be really exciting, and that really highlight the integrated nature of the work. But you're all right. In Chesapeake Miguel, we have ways to go. We always can significantly improve the border. So with that, thank you. And I want to make sure we don't have any additional open public comments from the border members, just general comments. If I haven't missed anybody, I don't see any hands up. Really, am I missing anybody, or any hands or questions from anybody?
No, there's no hands raised, Chair Dedina.
Great, thank you. And then, all right, so just to let everybody know, the next Borders meeting is Friday, May 7th, 2021 at 9 a.m. Oh, okay, 9 a.m. All right, well, that's good. And this will be a joint meeting with the Transportation Committee and the Regional Planning Committee. And we'll hear a report on the Social Equity Plan, the 2020 Regional Plan. But there's a commitment there, you heard it. We're really going to take that deep dive in some of these other issues related to border crossing and things that reduce emissions and bring people together without driving cars. So I think I look forward to that. And the Jack Shoe Memorial Rail discussion. So anyway, which is important stuff as well. So with that, thank you for making the time to join us today. And we are adjourned, and have an amazingly awesome weekend. Stay safe and be outside. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.